Good day. Welcome, one and all, to our Explain Like I'm Five BSV Blockchain, episode 17. We are continuing the vision, the conceptualization of tokenization on BSV. And today we have as our guest a most prolific developer, a ground shaker, a mover and shaker in making things happen, someone who leads by example. That is Luke Rohenaz. And he is, bravo! He is the CEO and founder of Tonic Pow, which is the complete renovation of global marketing. With the Tonic Pow link, you can go to the website Tonic Pow and install the extension to your web browser today to start earning money for your social network. Whether you share something or whether it's clicked on, you can actually earn money from that. So he's a real trailblazer in the realm of the monetization of individuals' data with individual data ownership. So welcome, Luke, here to the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Standing ovation. And it's just super exciting to have you here today, Luke. I've watched you with Tonic Pow and then later with Jamify. And most recently, in the past year or so, with One Sat Ordinals. And you are trailblazing there, working around the clock. I get the pings in the Discord, and you're there leading the way. So thank you for all you do and for being here now.
Yeah, it's obviously a big passion. There's so much that this technology kind of unlocks for all of us. So being able to play even a small part in that is just very motivating to me. And work becomes very easy to do under those conditions.
Oh, c'est vrai. Yes, that is the truth. And I saw that most recently, this is kind of off topic, but you had shared a post in the Discord and you had said, hey, look, this is really cool because BitPing was doing a node upgrade and they were going to migrate to a peer-to-peer node network. So tell me, why is that a big deal in just regular news?
It's super exciting for me, just anything like that, because this is a very natural fit for Bitcoin. Bitcoin was sort of always designed to be able to interact in a peer-to-peer way, and I think those guys really understand that philosophy. It's not something that's super easy to build. You have to kind of know what you're doing, and those guys do. And I haven't really checked out the update yet, but I know, based on the things they put out in the past, it's probably of high quality and something that I could learn from. So I was just excited to see it.
Yes, me as well, because I had downloaded that onto my laptop years ago, and it was where they would check for uptime of computers, websites all around the world. And by having your computer available for that system, you could earn money. You could earn, that would be monetized to you in very, very teeny tiny micro payments. And tell me, Luke, in the neighborhood, walking around, sometimes I hear people use the word micropayment. They say, yeah, this game has micropayments. And I ask them, oh, well, how much was it? And they say, oh, maybe $1. And I say, oh, well, that's not really a micropayment. So what is a micropayment to you from your perspective, Luke?
Um, so I guess my perspective is probably a little bit weird even for the BSV space on this because I hear it more times referred to almost as like microtransactions. And in the gaming world, this is actually really funny, but in the gaming world, it has a totally different meaning and connotation than what we mean when we're talking about BSV. A lot of times these days, people are referring to microtransactions as like when a big company decides to basically put lots of paywalls in their game for things that used to be that customers used to enjoy as being kind of free, and it's kind of gets a bit of a bad reputation that name in the gaming space. Uh, but I think if people like realize it's a very different thing than in the Bitcoin world where what we're talking about is you can divvy up any kind of financial payment all the way down to sub penny transactions, and because the network fees are so low and everything on BSV, that's very easy and makes a whole bunch of use cases possible that you wouldn't really think of. One of the ones I like is when you're talking about social media, maybe liking a post, something like this, all the different actions that you do could involve small payments. It doesn't mean they always should, um, but for some use cases, it really does change kind of the dynamics. Can change the necessity for advertising to be involved or be in the middle of certain things, or to kind of exploit users. So it just is it's a really great tool that allows developers to kind of reimagine all sorts of different platforms in the way that all sorts of apps that we use every day work.
Yes, that is true. And we are on the precipice here, ever more, of this evolution in the global economy as we move towards the digital world where everything becomes digitized. And yes, we may still love our paper and pen, but the actual notary and certification and record keeping are all digital. And wow, what a great resource Bitcoin is, and the fact that it's immutable and it cannot be changed, and it has that triple entry accounting essence to it, so that people can use that to have integrity to their everything. Everything. And so now we are focused on tokenization. And a token, there could be many things that are a token. I recently watched your panel discussion at the London Blockchain Conference from 1 year ago, where you were there with Thomas and Kurt, and also the tokenized leader, and then yourself and Brendan from ELAS, I think, and James Belding. So you were there all talking about different token protocols. So that is a most insightful lecture. Anyone wishing to learn more, just go watch that discussion. But my first question is really to explain like I'm five. And that is, first of all, why have tokens in the first place? Doesn't Bitcoin solve all this?
Uh, well, Bitcoin's great for sending value around, but sometimes what you want to send around is a representation of something else. And this is the idea behind basically taking the smallest unit of Bitcoin or some small amount of Bitcoin and sort of using that just as a label of kinds that can be sent around between wallets and represent something in the real world, like for example, maybe a digital license to some content, or um, even just things that are like a pretty good example was when the Twetch team did their hoodies. They had physical hoodies that were serialized and numbered, and each one is associated with a token. And now you have this ability to have sort of a marketplace where people could buy and sell these tokens without having to ship around the physical hoodie in between all the intermediaries. And then if somebody wants to redeem the token for the physical hoodie, they could do that at any step along the token's life cycle. So it's once again just another fundamental tool that ends up being really useful for all kinds of situations. And because this is all very new, you kind of have to use your imagination. There's so many undiscovered possibilities for many of these things.
Yes, it's so exciting. And you are one with the imagination and with the wherewithal to make it happen. You do this time and again. And I remember years ago hearing folks speak of colored coins. And
Right.
I want to know from your perspective, where does the term colored coin come from? Did it originate within the Bitcoin scene or was it outside of that somehow? What's the story on colored coins?
Yeah, I think color coins was a good way to describe what this is, where what you're saying is you're kind of coloring a coin a certain way. And that's another way of saying kind of what I just described, where you're making something represent something else. Like this isn't just a Satoshi, this is a green Satoshi, and therefore it's associated with this green thing over here. I mean, in a very basic sense. So I think that that was just a really nice way to very simply communicate that these are different than regular. Uh, they are Bitcoin, but they've been sort of colored in a way so that they now represent something else, or they have some additional property.
Oh, beautiful. And back in, I guess, 2013, I heard Kurt say this was kind of all the rage in the philosophy circles of those involved in Bitcoin. And then it's just recently emerged. So, what happened in the interim from that time when people were speaking about colored coins to today with the explosion of token protocols on blockchains all around?
Right. Yeah, there's a crazy history behind all that, but a lot of it just kind of is focused around the difficulties that people had with implementing these kinds of systems on some of the blockchains that are out there. Um, there's a lot of friction in many of the chains with being able to do different things. One of the really early examples of this kind of thing on BTC, and before there were any forks, was Counterparty. And Counterparty was very much doing this, where they're making other types of tokens, but they essentially live on the Bitcoin blockchain. And people could send them around and do all sorts of things with them, but there were some real technical limitations because of the way that the system was sort of maintained and altered over time. And that's what I think probably led to kind of the dying out of that idea for some period of time, until much later, when people found little gaps in the system that they could reintroduce these ideas. And then, like any good idea, as soon as it finds its way, then people are gravitating towards it, finding use cases for it, and the popularity just kind of skyrockets.
Definitely. And I think that's what you're after is you are a collaborator and you seek to welcome everyone, all the developers everywhere to come and play, come and interact, come and experiment and build on what sat one sat ordinals. But also there is the, dare I say it, OG ordinals, which was launched on BTC, and it created quite a ruckus, but it also stimulated people's mindsets and their imaginations to understand about the importance of the utility of the blockchain, with it having massive scale throughput for everyone in the world to use, to have this space on there for data, as well as, like we say, those teeny tiny fees, which would be those micropayments or microtransactions. So, yeah, tell us what happened when the Ordinals was launched on BTC.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to describe it is an explosion of creativity and imagination. I mean, all of a sudden, something that wasn't possible became possible in the mind's eye of a very large number of people who really had dismissed some of these earlier ideas. And that's just led to one interesting thing after another. I mean, admittedly, I don't really follow everything that's going on. It's way too much, and I'm usually pretty heads down on my own stuff. But you'd
Yeah,
have to be
totally.
living under a rock to not know how much excitement and interest and innovation has happened as a result of that one discovery.
Yes, and I do love the counting from zero, zero on up. So that's the theme of ordinals. And then all of a sudden, one sat ordinals appeared. I remember standing in line at the airport to board a flight to London last year for the London Blockchain Conference. And as I had been walking through security, I had seen Joshua Hensley. And I said, "Hey, Joshua." And so we ended up at the same gate. And then he said, "Hey, the most important thing happening is one sat ordinals." And he told me how to download the wallet onto my phone. I did it immediately. And I was just totally a new person to this, just learning about STOS and one sat ordinals at that time a year ago. So, what happened? How did you launch this one sat ordinals website, web browser, wallet?
Well, it happened a bit out of necessity for me personally, but also just the timing was perfect. I was working on a project that was essentially blockchain like filtration. In BSV we have very large blocks, and we don't expect everybody to run a full node in the future. But we have these really interesting systems that I really I don't want to not be highly available. And it was always kind of hard to find infrastructure that was able to give you just a segment of the blockchain with some type of data that you're interested in, regardless of knowing who sent it or anything like that. So this is what ended up becoming Jungle Bus. And at the time, we were just looking at integrating the various different token protocols and data protocols that exist on Bitcoin into the system. And also, I had sort of waited for a long time to adopt a token protocol. There are many projects that I had worked on that I wanted to use tokens, but I never really had something that I felt was like this really great fit for one reason or another. And so when it came time to do this, Ordinals on BTC was just coming out. It also happened to be that Dave Case is a very good friend of mine, was in town visiting, and he came in the office one day, and I had started sketching out this concept for what Ordinals would look like on BTC, and he just sort of sat down and threw down with me, and we went to town and got some other developers involved, and one thing led to another, and probably a few days later, we had some basic prototypes of some software and a protocol documentation ready to go.
Brilliant. And this leads us to the importance of person to person interaction, being together in person and jamming like that or collaborating. So you often will work remotely with your friends and colleagues. But what is it about being in person that just really is so uh, impactful as far as making things happen?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think um, that's a difficult question. I mean, for me, yeah, 90 something percent of my interaction with people is remote or going to be over like a video call or something like that. Um, I think getting together with people in person, you just have a lot of just sort of free flowing conversation. That's not like, oh, I have this meeting, we're going to discuss X. You have less kind of constraints. I think when you are meeting with people in person, there's no real expectation. You're there usually to do something completely unrelated or just to spend time around people if it's just a get together or something like that. I think that is what kind of creates the conditions where you get into these really interesting conversations, and one thing can sort of lead to another, and ideas can be born out of that. Not to say that doesn't happen at other moments, but I think you're right that there is something a bit special about being together with people in person.
Yes, I feel you there. And you are in Miami, is that right? Or West Palm Beach? Where
Or
are you
not
living?
not anymore. I'm in Michigan now.
What?
Yeah,
Michigan? Oh
yeah.
my gosh. Well, are you at least on the Great Lakes?
Pretty close. Yeah.
Okay.
Just a lot more family up here, and I've got a young daughter, and she's got lots of cousins here and things. So,
Oh,
um,
fun. Well,
yeah.
congratulations. I hadn't
Thank
known
you.
that. Yes. So, well, next, forget about the West Coast Citadel. Let's do the Great Lakes Citadel.
I'm down.
Yeah, Cleveland to
Yeah, well,
Michigan,
Dave Case
Toronto.
is in
What way?
Michigan as well, so
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, that sounds good. So, yeah, so you can regularly sync up there and have jam sessions, building, and just these free flowing conversations, which are so important. And also, welcome everyone into the Discord that is a developer that wants to get in and jam in on this. So, I know that your Discord is one sat ordinals. Is that right?
right.
Yeah, I'm definitely in there and I see you working around the clock. So, how is that managing a community as you do on the Discord? Is that helpful to you or is that just kind of a heavy responsibility? How does that work for you?
It's kind of weird with me. I mean, I think I go through phases. Sometimes I need to go completely dark for a while, depending on what I'm working on. But right now, I really am enjoying interacting with the community and getting feedback from everybody and improving things. Sometimes what I have in my head is very far away from what is realized, and so I kind of have to just go dark and get as much of that built out as I can before I'm ready to really share it with people. Otherwise, there tends to be like a lot of extra back and forth with people not quite understanding where I'm going with something yet. So I tend to kind of go in phases where I'll be nowhere to be seen for a while, and then all of a sudden I'll pop back up and be very interactive and stuff.
Wow, yes. And let's go into the essence of tokens, if we may. We spoke with Owen Vaughn of his recent white paper on universal blockchain assets just last week. And now today we keep on this theme of tokenizing everything here with you. And I wonder, what do you see as a token? And just kind of rip on the token concept, please.
Well, first thing I'll say is I did catch Owen's presentation in London, and I was totally blown away by that. I really hope to see that become realized. I talked to a lot of people about that project. I think it's really exciting, and I love the idea of making that more universal because everybody has really historically gets caught up into these camps and sort of ignores sort of fundamental capabilities of the networks in favor of their bag bias, if you will. And I think that has the power to really sort of disrupt that. I think choosing like ordinals as a foundation for this protocol had a very similar effect in the sense that it was already something that was already familiar to people on other blockchains, so it's a bit disarming where a lot of other things that come out of BSV can be perceived by others as almost like arrogant, like we think oh, ours is so much better, this, that, and the other, and it kind of gets, almost combative or religious or something. So by sort of adopting what was coming from somewhere else was a bit of a signal that, we really all do have very shared values. We're after a lot of the same things. And yeah, I think that that really helps to kind of bring people together. As far as what I see as a token, uh, there's really so much opportunity on that front, and it can be even hard to imagine the kinds of things that might be tokens in the future because it's so distant from what we do every day right now. But I mean, we have rewards points at almost every store you go to these days, and there's lots of facets of this that we're already pretty used to. And I think um, tokenization on a blockchain system ends up sort of eating up those use cases first because they are already familiar and don't take as much imagination. The efficiency should be higher. So it really is going to take just platforms that exist to make this easy for end users to use in their business or whatever their project may be. And I think you'll see uh, slowly at first, and then all at once, there will be huge ad- adoption of this for all kinds of use cases. For me, obviously, I'm focused on integrating tokens into the projects that I already have. You had mentioned Tonic Pow at the beginning of this. I haven't done much with Tonic Pow in a while now, um, partially because it was a bit early in some sense. And there's huge things that I wanted to do with tokens with that platform, but I didn't really have a token protocol that was a perfect fit. And I'm eager to circle back with all the different things that I've started and get them uh, to where the vision really was for a lot of those things. Jamify is another one. It was built on the Run protocol originally, which is not really being maintained or developed anymore. So that was another reason that OneSat even came into existence in the first place. And yeah, so for me, I gotta sort of turn off the imagination for a little bit and just focus on just finishing what I started on all of these different fronts.
Radio. Yeah, being uh, thorough with your imaginative entrepreneurialism. And I remember back then when Jamify first emerged, it was a time when a lot of people were talking about doing this. And then, oops, there it is, it's happened, and you did it.
Right.
So that's why I say you lead by example because you just do it like Nike, right? So that's fantastic. And just know wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I'm behind you doing the Arsenio Hall cheer, going, hoo, 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 hoo,
Good
because
reference.
I love what you do. Yeah.
Thank you.
And, I think one thing I heard James Belding say in the talk was that even your passport is a token because it's a contract that enables you to certain things. Like if you have a US passport, then you are able to go to such and such a country, enter without a visa. If you have a British passport, you are able to do things in Britain. If you have, let's say, a passport in France, then that would entitle you to live and work in anywhere in the EU. All of these contracts within the token are very meaningful to people in many different ways. So I think that is a fun example of a token, and it's on paper. Of course, we have the chips in our passport now, but we're moving to a world where it will all be secured on the blockchain. And you are really down there building the infrastructure for such a thing. You and several others in the BSV ecosystem, like Tokenized and ELAS, as well. Even I saw Jerry David Chan just posted something about a new tokening method that has just emerged, he said. So I just reshared that on X. Did you happen to catch that news?
I didn't.
No?
This might be the first time I've gotten on here in a while is to join this space. So
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you did. So, with tokens, there could be so many types. Another one that I'm thinking of is with the security of machine to machine transactions. If we were to have autonomous driving vehicles, they would need to have a transaction flow between them in certain situations. And just within the systems functioning, there would need to be transactions made machine to machine. And that could be, I believe, another form of a token. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, they would no doubt use tokens in those communications. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I mean, you can communicate via the blockchain without tokenizing something, but once you do tokenize it, you give all of these extra abilities to that data. Like it can be bought, sold, listed, transferred, and all these other aspects sort of just pop into existence. Um, but just to kind of expand on what you had mentioned there with the IoT communications, this definitely is going to be a huge use case for blockchain. And I think human beings have their really dug in biases about what coin is popular and all these kinds of things. But I think that's really not going to matter very much to things like AI and other decision makers that are now coming into the ecosystem. They're going to look at fundamentals like what's cheap, what's fast, what allows for maximum flexibility. And I think that's the one area that the folks in BSV really kind of understood early and are going to be proven right on.
Oh, yes. Amen, brother. Yes, I think so. And then we have the human aspect, where what we've seen so far with tokens has been the NFT art craze. Several years ago, there were celebrities getting paid to advertise certain NFT gangs. And I think most of them did get in trouble for that.
Right.
But anyway, those are tokens, examples of the apes and the pepes and the frogs and the Nakamoto cars. All of these are tokens, all the NFTs. Is that right?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, good. Just making sure. So, yes, these are playful tokens, we could say. Now, they're also traded, and they're traded on the market. And that's what you're building, is you are building new markets for the trade of these items, of these digital products, these NFTs and tokens. So I think that we've seen very early days a kind of uh, silly looking thing, but
Mhm.
it's actually the experiment for what will be very serious when
Exactly.
we do have the complete tokenization of all financial assets. So it could be oil futures, commodity trading, everything that is done with bonds and stocks could be digitized, and that would be through tokenization. And what do they need to use? They need to use, like you say, the practical one, the one that works, the one that has the least friction and has the lowest cost. So, yeah, we are here. We're building the present and the future. And maybe no one, it seems, is paying attention, but we are. And we carry on. So, yeah, what do you see for financial markets? Is that something you think one sat ordinals could be an infrastructure for, or are you focused on another area?
Yeah, I think one set in particular is very like almost deceptive in that it does seem like just something that's very simple and playful, and maybe some people think, oh, that's not the professional token protocol or something like this. But the the design of it was really around simplicity and around just kind of keeping it simple and also extensibility. So one of the unique aspects is that you can use something like script to build a way more advanced contract that suits a very specific use case, but it can also be an ordinal at the same time and inherit all the properties of the tokenization without the actual tokenization having to be in the script itself, in the sense that it sort of monopolizes that section of the transaction. Um, what I mean by this is many of the other token protocols out there, in fact, like most of them, have more of an active tracking mechanism where the script itself is used to sort of color the coin, so to speak. And with us, we kind of separate the script into two parts. One is a free form part that you can do whatever you want with. And then as long as you kind of put this little ordinal wrapper at the end of the script, it becomes an ordinal. And so this really does allow for really anything that you can imagine to be built on top of this. And people have already built a number of different sub protocols on top of what's been done with one sat ordinals. One of my favorites is something called POW 20, where this is still very early and there's very few pieces of software that even work with this yet. But what it lets you do, this is actually for fungible tokens. So let's say you can issue a token that actually requires proof of work be submitted, and you actually have to solve a hash puzzle just like miners do to mine Bitcoin. And when they do that, and only when they do that, are they issued some of the tokens. Use your imagination there and realize like this is it's a pretty unique thing, and it's very cool. And sort of gives a whole other aspect to the token that somebody had to expend a provable amount of energy or effort in order to get that. And so it's very different from something that you could just make up out of thin air and say, hey, I snapped my fingers, now I have 21 million tokens. It really does sort of change the dynamics. And that's just one example of a script that somebody came up with. There can really be any number of things that people can do with this.
And how do people do things with this? Where do they go?
I would say docs.onesatordinals.com is probably like the more technical resource. We will be uh, doing some major updates to the onesatordinals.com website. And just to kind of give a rundown of that, onesatordinals.com is kind of the old version of the OneSatOrdinals website right now. And the newest version of that is onesat.market. The onesatordinals.com website is going to become a whole new website very soon that is loaded with just information, community resources, developer resources, and things that help to explain how to get started, uh, with a little more detail. But in the meantime, I would really say the best place to really go is into the OneSat Discord and talk to people there. There's a lot of good developers in there who are sort of happy to share information and get people started. We get new people in there all the time, and yeah, it's always nice to see people coming in interested in building.
Definitely. And how do you judge the character of new people that come into the space?
I don't think I've really had to. I mean, if somebody's in there and they're interested in building on something, um, they're pretty good in my book, type of thing. I mean, the conversation is really has always been oriented around that, and we really haven't had any problems with any riffraff in there or anything so far. Fingers crossed, but we will, make sure that we keep that clean and sort of a just helpful place for people that's not super intimidating or anything. I think it's already got a pretty good reputation for that so far.
Certainly, yes. And even me, just as a lurker there, I feel it's a very warm community, and that you and David are, ready to answer questions or even ask questions there. So I love that, because I think that would be easy for new developers to come in and build on, get to it. And I guess to answer that question for myself, it would be to see what they do.
Right.
Maybe they ask a question and leave, but then they come back and they have something all built. So I guess it's just proof of work again, like by um, what they do, not just what they say.
Right. And I'd say that with each month that passes, the barrier to entry just gets lower and lower. If you tried to come in 6 months ago and build something, you probably would have had a much harder time than you would today. There's now browser wallets like yours, for example, which is a sort of an iteration on what was originally Panda Wallet, and that's a browser-based wallet. And because that exists now, just as an example, developers can just build a website that integrates with that wallet as opposed to having to build an entire wallet into their website, like OneSat.market does. So yeah, like things like that, and things that like script has built to make it easier to integrate ordinals with some more advanced scripts. These things are improving constantly. There's a bunch of people working really hard on many fronts, and it just gets easier by the day.
Oh, yeah, that's inspiring too. So, anyone out there listening here on the live or the replay, if you are a developer, jump in and get involved, because there's a lot you could do. You might create something that works and is of great value in the long run. So, we'll look forward to seeing new people joining in with their imaginations. Yes. And I wonder, Luke, where does it go from here?
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of really cool things on the horizon for this. I mean, like I said, what I'm focused on is kind of getting a lot of the old projects that I do really love kind of back up and becoming the best version of what they are. Namely, Jamify, for example, has kind of been on life support a little bit after the servers that it depended on and things like that are no longer operational in the ecosystem. So it's not there. But the beautiful thing is we've got a blockchain and all the data is there, and we're going to be able to restore sort of everything to the way that it was and better. So um, I would say that's
Yay.
probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to right now. But I have no doubt that in the time it takes me to do those things, there will be 20 new things that come out that are made by other people that get me all excited for completely different reasons. And that's part of what I love about just building in this space in general.
Sure. Yes, it's that human ingenuity I love so much. And yeah, I haven't felt too worried about everything that happened where uh, maybe the wallet that had a lot of my NFTs in it is no longer working. I have heard through the grapevine, let's say X, that you can reestablish those in a yours wallet.
Yeah, there is some functionality there to import your relay seed, and you can see some of your old assets and things, but you won't really be able to do too much with them quite yet, other than get a little peace of mind that they're still there and sort of accounted for.
Right.
There has
Yeah, and
been,
same with Twitch.
yeah, there has been some work behind the scenes to build the tooling necessary to restore that stuff. As an example, I have a very early prototype of sort of a run importer command line tool, which basically lets you take your relay seed phrase, pull in all of your jigs as they call them, and then we're working on the actual conversion process if you wanted to migrate those assets over to be one sat ordinals. That's something that's definitely in the works.
Hooray! Oh, thank you, Luke, for that. Yeah, because we really enjoyed that, and we have some super cool uh, jigs that we want to keep into the future. And even though they might seem silly, they could indeed be worth something one day, because we are here at the essence, the essential starting point of it
Right.
all. So
Museum
perhaps
pieces.
in the future,
Right.
exactly, yes. So I think it's exciting. It's like one time I went to the museum in Athens, Greece, and I saw all of these circles everywhere. They were just on stone. I also saw a lot of tablets. They had carved all their data into tablets. And then I saw all these wheels and circles. And that's kind of like our Relay X NFTs
Right.
or our Twitch
Right.
chats or Twitch threads or whatever. Because, yeah, in the future, they'll look back at that as the building
Yeah, and
blocks.
it is going to be
So that is
it's
exciting.
going to be a really unique experience too, because I mean, when's the last time that you used the service that you really loved that shut down, and then sometime later you were able to have all of your content back and stuff like that? I mean, it really doesn't exist. So I think that's going to be
Right, like
really cool for
Hotmail.
people when that really starts to happen.
It does. And again, it reminds us of long-term vision. We're here long run. We are builders for serious, like for real. We're doing this, and it's not just let's try this out for a week or a year or a couple years. No, this is a lifetime, and we are all here for it, and we are seeing it through. So it is super exciting to be here and to look towards the future. So I think that with tokenization, it is a huge opportunity for the world and across all sectors, all verticals, even markets that have yet to be developed. We can create new markets out of this. So it is very important to pay attention now and to be a part of building this in the future. Because just like AI, it's the people involved that matter. If the people putting the information in have integrity, then maybe that LLM will have more base data. But we're here and we're all hands on deck. So I love that. And Luke, you had been a fire starter there with Jamify and with bringing this tokenization to music and digital music rights. So, are you a musician?
Yeah, I've always kind of kind of played around with it. I don't really consider myself a musician, but I've always had fun with it. And nowadays with AI music, it's going to be even harder to sort of consider myself that way. It's almost like anybody can express their creativity through music these days. The tools are getting to be unbelievable. Um, but yeah, I've dabbled.
Ooh, cool. So are you mostly electronic or do you play an instrument?
Yeah, I've always um I kind of grew up in the hood in New York, and rap
Hmm.
was sort of my entire life at one point. So believe it or not, it's
Wow.
actually I always made beats and wrote lyrics and things like that. It's always been there just as a hobby.
Super cool. Can you do that
Beatboxing.
thing? Like what? Yeah,
Yeah,
beatboxing.
but there's no way
Yeah,
I'm doing that right now.
come on. Let's spill the beatbox, man. Okay. Yes, but music is at the heart of all innovation, right? So that's good, even for you. And Einstein played the violin,
Oh,
and he might not have been that good at it, but it was very important to him as a hobby.
well, I hope
So,
he wasn't that good at it, because then
just give yourself more
what are the
credit.
rest of us doing if he was good at that too? I mean,
Yeah, really. Oh, great. Well, it's been a most insightful time with you today. We just have a few minutes left, but I would love for you to tell us about something that we all need to know. Maybe our cousins, our aunties, our neighbors, our friends, people who are not here or are not developers. What would you say to them about tokenization and one sat ordinals?
uh, I mean, I guess when you first started asking that question, I had something else in mind that wasn't quite directly related to that. Um, but I would just say that I think uh, I more about the dynamic of like blockchain versus AI, right? So a lot of people saw AI happen, and it gets very exciting, and everybody sees very clearly this is the future, right? But with blockchain, everybody was sort of unsure, and is this really going to be it? And then people feel like, oh well, that kind of had its moment, and then it sort of died out. I I think people don't quite realize that that's just as big of an innovation. And I'll just sort of point out that in the early days, when the internet was the big innovation, there were a lot of forward-facing components to it, like web browsers and modems and things like this that people were sort of in awe over. But there were all of these sort of less attractive innovations that people didn't know as much about, that were just in the background, like the huge leaps forward in data storage technology and the ability to sort of make the internet more useful. And that's kind of the way I see this relationship between AI and then the blockchain. AI is gonna expose a lot of problems, such as like identity, for example, not knowing what's real, needing to be able to sign and authenticate and just sort of verify the integrity of data. And that's something that blockchain really excels at. And it's kind of the other side of the coin. So I think we're due for a bit of a resurgence in all of this, and uh, eventually it's going to be pretty obvious that it's absolutely necessary.
Yes, I'm thinking it's just immersive and it like you say. I mean, this is really morbid of an example, but it's like a silent killer.
Right.
It's like a carbon monoxide poisoning. It's like it's filling up the house and no one knows. That's kind of what this is like, where it's emerging, it's everywhere, but nobody can see it, or a lot of people can't see it, and then suddenly it's there. But to harken back to the tarot, death could be the end of one thing and the birth of something
Right.
new. So I don't mean to be morbid with this, but just that it is happening, and yeah, you have that vision. So now Web3 is another hyped up term like AI that people are really catching on, or at least they did like 6 months to a year ago. You don't hear it so much anymore. But what is really Web3 to you?
Well, I'll point out a couple things here. One is I don't think anybody had a good definition for Web 2 until we were many years into it. And I think the same is true for Web 3. What people call Web 3 in the early days is just some of the components of what becomes a new version of the internet for real. And the way I imagine all of this working is that the blockchain network eats basically the entire internet, and everything uses that as its infrastructure, and that's really when we have arrived. So we're quite a ways away from that, but I don't think it's as simple as, oh, I've got a wallet built into my website, therefore it's Web 3. I think that's an oversimplification.
Hmm. Thank you. Yes. And I think that, like they said, payments had a placeholder in the initial version of the internet. And now it's emerging with monetization, with the ability to send and receive micropayments. So that's really what it is to me. And it's this whole evolution of utility and of the extension of markets, the creation and extension of market economics into this age, this new age. So, also another term that we often hear is tokenomics. So, what is tokenomics to you, Luke?
I mean, tokenomics is not really a huge like area of focus for me and that sort of thing. But the way I think of it is, um, these are people exploring incentive structures. Once you have these components, these tokens, how can you design incentive structures so that people engage more with the token, or so that early investors are rewarded for adopting something before the rest of the crowd joins, and those sorts of things. It's basically the I guess like financial science behind how to make a token that kind of goes viral or attracts more investment or any of those sorts of things.
Thank you. Well, we are here at the top of the hour and we are on top of our game because we have had a conversation with you, Luke. Everyone here in the audience, we're grateful to you for being here. I see many homies in the house like Hooligan, Ray, One Love, Dr. Catherine DeSoto, Billy, and Ted. Oh, we have so many friends here. And even Billy, Billy is big with Dogenals and ordinals and one sat ordinals. So he's a great example of how this trend of tokenization is happening on multiple chains. And it's totally cool to get involved here, there, and everywhere. So is that something that you also believe, Luke?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we're going to go through all sorts of permutations and iterations of this whole thing, and all of these experiments are worthwhile. And just the simple fact that once that ordinals exist shows you that there was inspiration that bled over from one chain to another. I think your interview with Owen kind of shows another example of that, of how there will be cooperation between these things in various ways. That said, I'm also like someone who doesn't like. I try. I already have so many things going on. I don't want to spread myself no more thin than necessary. And my goal in any of this has never really been to like, get as rich as I can or anything like that. I have like goals in mind about the actual utility, and that's sort of the most important thing to me. So that's really the reasoning why I don't really jump around. um, I've got more than I can handle with what I've already got on my plate. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate what help happens elsewhere.
Oh, beautiful. Good point. And yeah, I think Billy is a good example of one that is more in the market. He's there. They host spaces about buying and selling tokens and NFTs. So that's really his forte, is that area of the market. And then your forte is, like you say, building the infrastructure and doing something that is meaningful and that can last for generations, and bringing economic empowerment to individuals in all space and time. So again, I'm doing the Arsenio Hall chant. Who for you, Luke, always and forever. And thank you so much for your time today. And please do let us know, is there anything you'd like to say to greet the audience and bid us all adieu?
Just to kind of put a nail in what you just said there. I mean, that's part of the reason why, if you're hanging out in the Discord, you'll see that I'm super appreciative of feedback, because I know I can't be in all of these worlds, and I can't have the same understanding as everybody else. So I just want to encourage people, even if they're think that they can't really play a role or whatever, like you'd be surprised how much just simply giving some feedback about something can be a great contribution.
Oh, fabulous. Yes. And you're open minded to different perspectives, because sometimes, and in most times, it's that outsider that has the prolific insight that you need.
Right.
So that's makes magic happen. And that's wonderful. You have that attitude. Well, we are grateful that you're here, Luke, and that we can be here in an ecosystem where you're involved. And more power to you each and every day. I hope you get up to the Great Lakes there in Michigan. What's the lake near you?
Well, I mean, it's sort of Michigan's totally surrounded. Uh,
By all of them.
yeah,
Okay.
and I'm still
Oh,
pretty new too, so my geography is still pretty rough. But I'll tell you, I just
okay.
visited Mackinac Island, uh, and it was
Oh,
absolutely nuts. I didn't know anything about it before going there, so it was quite the shock. But if anybody's never heard of it, I would say check it out. It's pretty crazy.
okay. So crazy in a good
Yeah,
way?
I mean, for example, there's no cars on the island, right? So everything is by horseback or carriage, if you want to get around, which is a totally just wild experience. And then it's also got an incredible history. It played a key role in a number of wars over the years and things like that. So it's just a super interesting trip.
Ah, such fun. I will definitely go there. That sounds brilliant. Thank you for the tip.
Yeah,
Yes. And yeah, the Great Lakes are beautiful. I did grow up off Lake Erie, an early childhood there from Cleveland, Ohio. And it's just
yeah.
gorgeous. I love the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, up in Toronto, and then all of them. So, yeah, thank you for that. Hope everyone gets out and enjoys the nature wherever you are. Because again, appreciation of nature is healthy, but it also leads to great innovation. Just look at Da Vinci. So, Luke, have a beautiful day, and we wish you all the best to your family. And look forward to jumping into the Discord, OneSat Ordinal's Discord, so that all the developers can go in there and see what's happening and feel welcome to collaborate. And dare I say it, even cooperate, or competition with cooperation.
Right.
Do you know that word? How do you say that?
Oh man, I've heard it pronounced.
Oh,
I've heard it, yeah,
co-opetition?
coopetition, right? I've heard it. I've heard it pronounced to a couple slightly different ways, but it's a very real thing, because we're building on these open protocols, and it's really interesting that here we are building, a market, for example, and I'm currently in the middle of building this other website, this community website that highlights, who are essentially competitors in some ways, but in other ways they're huge partners, because they expand the entire ecosystem, which just grows the pie and benefits everybody.
Exactly. Ah, beautiful. Well, we'll look forward to those updates and we'll share them out. And Luke, I can't wait to speak with you again. I hope we can continue this conversation.
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
It's my joy. Thank you. And thank you all to everyone here. I do have some exciting news to share with you about recent publications. So make sure if you want to keep learning day by day more and more about this economy, let me tell you. So, first of all, the SPV wallet is already live in public beta. Start building now. You can go to the website docs.bsvblockchain.org and you can see on the BSV blockchain X thread that this post is shared for the SPV wallet. Also, grab a copy of our ebook about the next era in miner economics, embracing co-opetition and infrastructure. Then, grab a copy of the BSV blockchain as an enterprise cybersecurity framework ebook today. And join the BSV community on Discord. Connect with fellow enthusiasts, stay updated on the latest news, and dive deep into blockchain discussions. So, we will look forward to updating our bookshelves with all of these publications and also meeting all of you that are interested to engage in this market. Welcome to join us on the Discord, OneSat Ordinals. Go to the website, onesatordinals.com, and go to BSV Blockchain Discord as well. Well, I'm very lonesome leaving, but I'll hope to see you all again next week. Thank you. Goodbye. Oh, and also, please follow Luke. You can follow Luke here on X Spaces. His handle is at Wild Satchmo. That's at WILDSATCHMO. And we'll look forward to that and more. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.